Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Connecticut and we're going to go to another brewery that's never featured on the channel before. So these guys are yet another relatively new addition to the Connecticut beer scene, but they have become very well established over the last few years and they seem to be really quite well respected. This brewery is one that Josh pointed out to me as being one of his personal favourites because they do lots of different lager beers, so that's right up my street as well. I do enjoy my Central European style lagers, and this particular beer is a style that I do very much enjoy, but one that we really don't get to review all that often on the channel, or at least not as often as I would like. So yeah, quite curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to a little place called New Britain, which is kind of to the southwest of Hartford, the state capital of Connecticut, right in the middle of the state, and we're going to have a look then at my first beer from Alvarium Beer Company. So this particular beer is called Hedwig. It comes in at 5.2% ABV, and this one is a Märzen lager beer, and apparently this is one of their Oktoberfest releases again, because they're getting really into Oktoberfest here at this point in the US. But yeah, one of Josh's favourite beer styles as well. He does enjoy a good Märzen, and he tells me that this is one that he buys pretty much every year when it comes out, and always cool to feature new breweries here on the channel too. And we'll just need to see how we get on with this one then. So let's crack on and see what this beer has in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Alvarium Brewing Company, or Alvarium Beer Company, sorry. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the American playlist, and that's being added to quite regularly at the moment, and we'll see how much more we can add to that during my time here in the US. But yeah, check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well. There are some very interesting things here on the channel at the moment, so have a look at those and see what you think. But let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Alvarium Beer Company then for the first time. So, Alvarium Beer Company, as I mentioned to you, are based in New Britain, which is to the southwest of Hartford, the Connecticut state capital here in New England in the US. And the brewery was founded back in 2017, and they were the first brewery in this town for a number of years, from what I understand. But the main men behind this brewery are Chris DeGasero, Mike Larson, and Brian Bugnachki. So Chris had previously worked for Cambridge House Brew Pub in Granbury, and also for City Steam in Hartford, as well as apprenticing at 508 and Chelsea Brewing down in New York, and he, I believe, is the head brewer these days. But Mike had a background in mechanical engineering and worked in industry for 10 years, while Brian had a background in sales and finance and worked in the software industry. So the three friends actually began home brewing together back in about 2013, and they soon felt that they wanted to take this hobby commercial and see how they got on. But the brewery itself can be found in an industrial area of New Britain, and it opened in June of 2017, and they spent several months renovating this premises and building everything up. So Chris takes care of the brewing, while Mike is the operations manager, and Brian takes care of the business side of things. So, you know, they do have a good pedigree for running their own company. But they've continued to expand the brewery infrastructure over the last few years, and they've got an on-site tap room there as well that you can go and visit. So we need to see if we can maybe do that while I'm here. I'm not sure if we'll have time though. But they've also got a sister company these days called Alvarium Roasting Company, and in 2022 they opened their own coffee shop on John Downey Drive as well, quite close to the brewery. But the main man behind this part of the company is Jacob Fila, and he's the director of roasting operations. But from what I understand, these guys are located in quite an industrial area of New Britain, and a lot of the companies around there make you know, precision instruments and little things like that for the American military industrial complex, as they call it. So yeah, a lot of interesting little bits of industry going on around the place that Alvarium are based. But as of September 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced about 260 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they do a whole variety of different styles. I saw Imperial Stouts in there, I saw lots of different lagers, quite a few different IPAs and things like this. But yeah, the only other thing to mention would be the name of the brewery, Alvarium. It's a beehive basically, sorry. So they wanted to kind of create a hive for people to go and enjoy their beers. So I think that was the idea behind the name Alvarium. I actually didn't know this word. I had to look up Alvarium. I've never heard a beehive being called an Alvarium before. So maybe that's one of these more widely used American words that I'm just not familiar with. But yeah, that is everything that I can really tell you about Alvarium Beer Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see they've got their own kind of mock-up of the German eagle on the top there, which is quite cool. And you can see around here, there is the Alvarium Beer Company symbol with the beer hive, and yet they've also got that German eagle down here as well with the barcode, which I thought was pretty cool. Surprised that that actually works with the scanners, to be honest with you. But yeah, it tells you a little bit about the beer on the back here. So it says, Uwe being of German origin, can we use a quote from you to lend a sense of authenticity to Hedwig? One word, Heimatgefühle. This means home feeling. Gefühle. Yeah, Heimatgefühle. Okay, right. My German reading is a little bit rusty, I have to say, but couldn't have said it better ourselves. So, Uwe, our taproom pretzel maker and friend. So, yeah, there you go. But it says on the back here, thanks for picking up this can. Clearly you have good taste and or an attraction to shiny objects. By holding this can, you have inadvertently formed a bond with it, imprinted a piece of your soul inside. Putting the can down may cause emotional damage to the contents, causing it to act out against future drinkers. Please keep your new friend cold and consume fresh for maximum happiness. Dispose of the empty husk in recycling bin. No tears. It had a rich, fulfilling life while with you, and nobody can take that away. I do like that. They do have some of the founders' signatures and also the paw print of the brewery dog down there as well, which I think is quite nice. But yeah, as I say, this beer is called Hedwig. It comes in at 5.2% ABV. It is a German-style Märzen lager. And so for those of you who don't know, the Märzen is a lager beer that was brewed originally in March of the year, hence the name Märzen. German for März is German for March, but it was actually banned in Germany to brew beer during the summer months because they didn't have the artificial refrigeration, and so this is why many breweries had their own cellar, so the beer could sit under there and ferment. And of course lagers are bottom fermenting beers, low temperature fermentation, so yeah, they take a long time to mature and things like that. And the Märzen was basically a beer that was brewed in March and then left until October, so it was a little bit stronger. But at 5.2% ABV, this is not the strongest Märzen that you're going to come across. From the flavour profile perspective, a Märzen is like a kind of amber coloured lager. You could compare it to the Czech Letzak, for example. And yeah, they're usually kind of, the German Märzens are a little bit more kind of biscuity leaning than the more bready Czech Letzaks, and of course you can compare these to the Vienna lagers as well, which have this kind of dry, almost rye bready type character to them, but also quite a little bit of brown sugary sweetness. But yeah, the Märzen was the beer that was originally used for Oktoberfest, which started because of the marriage of one of the Duke of Bavaria's daughters, if I remember rightly. But yeah, this is a 1 American pint can, 473 millilitres or 16 fluid ounces in American freedom units. But yeah, 5.2% Märzen beer, this one. Let's get it out into the glass and see what it's all about. Very curious to try this one, so let's do this. Oh, this is interesting. I will say, this is actually quite light. in terms of its colour for a Märzen lager. So, because usually a Märzen would actually be around this kind of coppery colour, but this one is pretty yellow, I have to say. So, we got a nice pour on this one, actually. Let me just line that up again so that my OCD is happy. But yeah, I think to you guys it actually looks as if it's a little bit amber, but if I shine the light through this one, it's actually really quite yellow. But before the head disappears on this one, you could see that the beer poured with about a finger of a frothy, I would say cream-coloured head. You can see medium-sized bubbles on the surface of the liquid there and a few foamier ones just as you go kind of further up. I'll just let you have a wee look at that for yourself. You can see that there. But yeah, this is definitely quite surprising in terms of its colour. This is one of the more yellow Märzens that I've come across. And you can see there are little bits of particle suspended in this one, which is kind of interesting too. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass with this one, a few bubbles going up toward the bottom of the head there. It is crystal clear, of course, as well, so it's obviously been filtered. But yeah, interesting this one, as I say, quite light in terms of its colour for a Märzen lager. I think you guys can see it if I hold it there. You can see the more yellow colour that this beer has. And as I say, these beers tend to be a little bit more sort of coppery coloured when it comes down to it. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour beer. But any barrel agent that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour too. But as I say, this one is a bit lighter compared to what I would expect from a Märzen lager beer. So yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma of this one then and see what it's all about. I'm very curious about this. So sugar it up a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to say straight away, the aroma of this one, it's actually very reserved. It's not too punchy in terms of its aroma. You really have to kind of search for it, actually. But that is the thing, you know, lager beers, they tend to be a little bit more reserved than, you know, the big juicy IPAs or the imperial stouts and stuff like this. So that is something to be aware of with these beers. So yeah, for me, the backbone of this one, you've got a lovely, I'm starting to get it now, maybe it just takes a wee bit of time to come out, but I am starting to get a lovely little bit of a kind of rye bready, bread crusty character coming out of this one. So yeah, lovely sort of rye bready, wholemeal brown bready bread crust in there. There's a nice little bit of woody character. Yeah, a little bit of rye bread, a little bit of a kind of, yeah, there is a little touch of woodiness in there as well, I would say. And also, when you this is the interesting thing actually, I was sugaring the beer up trying to get the aroma out of it, but you actually get more out of it when you let the beer just kind of settle and chill out. That's an interesting point to make about this one. So, yeah, the aroma of this is pretty damn interesting, I have to say. So on the, yeah, for me, the backbone of this beer is, the backbone of the beer is really quite, you've got this kind of fresh, almost like pumpernickel, brown bready bread crust there. There's a little bit of wood, for sure, there's a little bit of cracker, and then, yeah, you've got a mix of, like, pumpernickel bread. And there's a little bit of white bready character coming out of this one as well, and I would suggest that's probably down to the type of malts that they've used in this one, actually. Yeah. So yeah, for me, the aroma of this one is, this is the interesting thing, the colour isn't quite what I would have expected from a Märzen, but the aroma pretty much is. You can smell that this one's just slightly higher in its alcohol. It's got a little bit more of a kind of sweetness to it as well. And as I say, these are things that you would expect of this particular beer style. So yeah, for me, the aroma of this one is really nice, actually. Yeah, aroma-wise, this is great. So on top of you've got a mix, as I say, of kind of sweet pumpernickel brown bread a softer white bread sitting on top of that. And then you start to get the kind of sweeter aspects out of the beer. There is quite a little bit of an almost kind of honey type character to this one, which is in keeping, of course, with the brewery's imagery. But yeah, there's a little bit of McVitie's Digestive Biscuit in there, quite an oily biscuity concentration with regards to the kind of alcohol and stuff like that too. So yeah, McVitie's Digestive Biscuit, oily honey, then a wee bit of the kind of boozy character coming out of the beer, which you do expect from a Märzen, to be honest with you. And yeah, you get more and more woodiness and a slight nuttiness out of this beer the further into the nose that you go. On the hoppy side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect. This beer does have a good little touch of earthiness to it. There's a little bit of, yes, there's a little touch of earthiness in there. There's a little bit of herbal character as well. And these are things you would expect of the German noble hops. You've got a nice bright floral aromaticity, and you've also got that little bit of kind of grassy character coming out of this one. And the grassiness has a wee bit of, the grassiness has that little bit of zestiness to it. So yeah, aroma-wise, this goes together like really, really nicely. This is it's a lovely smelling beer, I have to say that. So yeah. Yeah, good little. The hoppy notes on this one are typically German noble hops. You can tell that from the kind of brightness of the floral and grassy side of things and the smoothness of the earthiness. So yeah, it's quite authentic in that sense. On the fruity side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect. You've got this oily sultana type quality to it. You know, white raisins, I think the Americans call them. So yeah, dry white green grapes rather than the kind of red grapes that you would use for raisins. There's a good little bit of a kind of oily peary character in there. Yeah, so a good little bit of an oily peary character. And yeah, you have yeah, lots of oily peary character, and then you also have a good little touch. There's a wee bit of apricot in this one too, which I think is really nice. So oil, like drier apricot, oily pear, and yeah, there's a wee bit of a kind of fresh green apple and stuff like this. Yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is it's really nice. The fruity character is kind of oily, and that's what you would expect of a German Märzen. I'm just curious to try this one now. As I always say though, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think, yeah, I think we should have a go at this and see what it's all about. There's still a little bit left in there, and we'll put that in a wee second. But yeah, this one is the Hedwig, a 5.2% Märzen lager from Alvarium Beer Company in New Britain, just outside of Hartford, here in Connecticut. This is one of Josh's favourite beers. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh. That is pretty damn nice, actually. What I'll say about this one, just the very first impression that I have of it, it shows you the more Märzen type qualities into the aftertaste. It actually comes across as being a lot more kind of bready. It's got a little bit of Vienna lager type quality to it as well, which is interesting. Like the kind of graininess and dryness of the bread, there's a little bit of that going on in here. But still, it's a very nice, drinkable lager beer, this one. As I say, I enjoy my lagers. I've been getting really into my lagers again over the last 2 years. Quite surprised at how popular they are in Connecticut, to be honest with you. But with when you think about it a bit more in depth, the number of folk that have got German heritage here, it does make sense. But yeah, it is a nice example of a beer, this one. And the flavour profile of this does show you that it is a Märzen. And I would say it's maybe not quite the breadiest and booziest of Märzens that I've come across, and the fact that it's not that strong, because Märzens are usually about 5.5% or so. The fact that it's not quite that strong might be the reason why this one's a bit lighter in colour, of course. So yeah, interesting stuff. But yeah, this beer does get a thumbs up from me. Gives you kind of everything you'd expect of the style, to be honest with you. So let's have a little look at the middle third of your palate then. We'll start breaking down the flavour and describe it a bit more in depth as we always do. Middle third of your palate. The backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. So that forms the backbone of the beer. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a little touch of kind of woodiness coming out of the beer. There's maybe a very, very slight hint of nuttiness the further into the aftertaste that you go, and then you start to get all the kind of bready layers out of this one. And the breadiness out of this beer is pretty nice. So yeah, the breadiness that comes out of this beer is quite... it's kind of interesting. So the base, above the bread crust, you get this layer of like a sweet sort of wholemeal brown bread. And then as you go above that, it's almost like you have another layer. It's almost like white bread, but not quite. You've got another layer of what feels like somewhere in the middle of like half white, half brown bread. And it's got a little bit more sweetness to it. And as I've said many a time, for me, a lot of the... quite often when you try these American lagers, compared to the original German ones, they're a little bit sweeter and they're a little bit wetter in their mouthfeel as well. The wetness of the mouthfeel is probably going to be due to the water profile, but I think generally speaking the American palate is a bit sweeter than the European palate. So American takes on German lagers are quite often just a little bit sweeter. But yeah, the way that this one goes together is really nice in that sense. So you've got the two layers of bread, the more kind of grainy wholemeal brown bread, and then the more kind of sweet wholemeal brown bread sitting on top of that. So yeah, above that, above the bready layer then, you maybe actually do have a layer of like a fresh kind of white bready character above that. Then you've got the then you have a little bit of the kind of brown sugary notes coming out of the beer. So on that brown sugary layer, you've got a good little bit of how would you say? You've got a good little bit of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character coming out of it. So yeah, McVitie's digestive biscuit on the base, or a little bit of an almost like cookie-ish type note for those of you, those Americans of you watching. And then you get like a more oily layer. You can feel like an oily circle in the middle of your palate, and that's a more kind of oily honey type note. And then in the dead centre of your palate, you've got the kind of concentration of the alcohol there. So you get this really dense, like oily, sweet, biscuity, syrupy type thing coming out of this beer. And I do, as I say, I do like how that goes together too. So yeah, for me, the way that all that pieces together is really quite nice too. This big oily, concentrated boozy type thing, the more honey type notes, and then the kind of grainier biscuit out toward the edges of your palate. I think on that note we've covered everything we need to about the middle third of the palate. So let's have a little look at the back third of the palate then. As I often say, the sweeter flavours will come out further forward on the palate, the darker flavours will come out, the more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back. But between the middle and back third of your palate, you're quite often going to get more of a kind of lightness about the flavours. You're going to get the same flavours, just at different intensities. But on the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there, a wee bit of brown bread on the base, white bread on top, and then you've got the kind of base layer in there, which is more of a the base layer that you get in this one on the back third of your palate. You've got a little touch of a more dry, grainy bread crust, and then you've got all the bready layers. So you've got the wholemeal brown bread, which was a little bit lighter and more airy, but still drier. The kind of slightly sweeter wholemeal brown bread on top there, which again feels a bit lighter, more airy, but still drier. Then you've got the fluffy white bread above that, which is a little bit more, it's a little bit more, yeah, light and airy, but still, it's still got a little bit of sweetness to it, actually, that one. And then you get, I do suspect there might be a little touch of Pilsner malt in this one. You just get a little bit of the more biscuity and drier aspects of the malty character from the middle third of your palate creeping over the top of that. Then you've got all the yeasty notes sitting on top there as well. So for me, the yeasty side of this beer, you've got this really dense, you've got this really nice, dense, kind of sweet brown bready character from these. It's like a little bit of a doughy sort of thing. There's a little bit of an almost kind of crackery and woody, it's like spicy, grainy character around it. Then you've got the kind of honeycomb notes in there, which are great. And yeah, the way that everything pieces together in that regard is also very, very nice. Yeah, on the hoppy, I think that covers the malty and yeasty side of things then, but definitely back third of your palate the flavour is taller, then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate it just kind of condenses down and squashes together. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of your palate there's definitely a wee bit of earthiness in there, so you can feel that little touch of earthiness. As you move further forward it's a wee bit herbal, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of your palate, it's definitely got a little bit more of a kind of floral, aromatic sort of thing coming out of it. So yeah, a little bit earthy, a little bit herbal, a bit more of a floral aromatic sort of note as you reach the front corners of the tongue and then round the front curve of your palate. Lighter and more grassy, but it has a wee touch of kind of zestiness to it, I would say. Seems like I should have worn a black t-shirt for this video, but still. Yeah, for me, I think that's everything about the green component, really. It's quite a wet green component, come to think of it. But yeah, the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there, brown bread in the base again and white bread on top, and the base of that front third of your palate, you've got the dryness of the bread crust in there, the wholemeal brown bread, the white bread on top, and then you get that lovely oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And again, I think that's really nice how that pieces together. Yeah. So, for me, the fruity side of this beer is kind of what you'd expect from the style, to be honest with you. At the back of that front third of your palate, you get those dry, you get that slightly drier, but still quite oily, you know, white, green, grapey, raisin type note coming out of the beer. Yeah. So the way that that goes together is really quite nice. So yeah, dry, white, green, grapey notes. Then you've also got a little bit more of as you move further forward, it really starts to give you more of a kind of oily pear, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, maybe pardon me, little touch of an almost datey character in there. So yeah, sultanas and dates on the very back of that front third of your palate. As you move further forward, it's a little bit more kind of oily and peary. And then yeah, as you push further forward from that, it gives you do get a teeny little tiny hint of gooseberry or something like that and dry apricot mixed together. But then on the very front tip of the tongue almost, you get a little bit of a slightly like fresh green apple kind of limey flavour coming out of this one, which is quite interesting. So yeah, the fruity character in this beer is kind of interesting and a wee bit different to what I would expect from the style, to be honest with you. But as I say, I do like how it kind of pieces together. But yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the flavour of this beer then. Let's round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So yeah, for me, the mouthfeel on this one, it's kind of mid to high end of the light-bodied part of the spectrum. The carbonation is quite smooth. It's got a lovely little bit of oily slickness to it, which I think is really interesting. So yeah, lovely wee touch of oily slickness in there. The carbonation has a degree of crispness to it as well. In terms of the IBUs, I would say it's fairly standard, about 20-25 IBUs coming out of this beer. Then the malt base, a bit of greenness underneath, a bit of smoothness in the middle, and a wee touch of sweetness on top. Then you've got that lovely little bit of kind of oily, fruity character coming out of the beer too. So yeah, the way this one kind of pieces together, I think, is really quite nice. For me, it is definitely a Märzen in terms of its style, even though it's a bit lighter in colour, of course. But yeah, one of the lighter Märzens, I would say, I've had them. It leads a bit more toward the bready side of things in the beginning, but then as you drink more and more of it, you do get the kind of sweeter, biscuity side of the style that you would expect too. But a nice example of the style, and a nice kind of solid drinkable beer for me. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Hedwig, a 5.2% Märzen style lager beer from Alvarium Beer Company in New Britain, just to the southwest of Hartford, in the centre of Connecticut here in New England in the US. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Alvarium Beer Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the fairly near future. But until then, slàinte, skål, cheers. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Check out my social media, check out theirs, and see you very, very soon.